So let's start now. Rachel and Michael, thank you both of you for joining us this evening. Let's talk first of all about the Times front page. Britain shuts its borders. Travel corridors to close on Monday. Rachel, a lot of people saying that, well, this should probably have happened quite a while ago. Or is it the right time now?
Well, a lot of people saying that it should probably have happened around about 9 or 10 months ago, in fact. This is obviously the government decision to suspend travel corridors. Anyone arriving to the UK needs a negative test and will then need to quarantine for 10 days after that. This is obviously due to fear of the new variant that we're seeing in South America and potentially elsewhere. I think it is the right decision because if there are new variants that we know about and that we know maybe the vaccine may be less effective against, that is obviously something the government is very worried about. The speed concerns me. Obviously, it's a massive logistics issue, stopping flights and forcing these travel restrictions into play. They're not coming into play, in fact, until Monday morning. And when you look at the speed at which the government has made other lockdown decisions, such as placing London in the very restrictive Tier 4 within a matter of hours on that Saturday before Christmas, and of course reversing the instructions for children to go back to school last week, that happened at 8 p.m. the night before, they do seem able to enact restrictions very, very quickly in some cases, but not on an international level when there's potentially a new and more transmissible strain out there. So I'm a bit confused about the timing of that decision.
And Mick, correct me if I'm wrong, but didn't the government say back in March and April that travel bans don't work?
They did talk in those terms, yeah, but I think in this case, you can see from the press conference today with Boris Johnson, they don't want anything to affect what's going on with the vaccines. You know, when you look across the whole of the last year, there's not been that many victories that the government have had with this virus. And I think at the moment they see that they're winning with the vaccines. You've had 3.2 million doses rolled out. You've got a lot of the over 80s already vaccinated. And I think this is just one thing they don't need. Another headache they do not need. And there's talk of the Brazil variant and other variants could be coming from other parts of the country. I think they've just seen this is the time to shut the travel corridors and just another variable out of the way that could affect what is, you know, quite a success with the vaccines at the moment.
Rachel, let's talk about the Daily Telegraph front page. 5 million over 70s to start receiving invitations for jabs. This is great news. Over 70s are expected to begin receiving coronavirus vaccinations as soon as next week as the government ramps up its programme. I mean, I know some 70-year-olds who've already had their vaccine, so I think it already is being rolled out in some areas of the country. But this is more great news on the vaccination programme.
It is great news, and I think if it hadn't been for the travel ban, that would be leading the majority of the front pages. We've had so little good news, and I know that the January lockdown is proving a lot more mentally challenging for a lot of people than the first one was, particularly because we thought we'd come out of it once and now we're back in it again. And obviously the time of year and the weather has an impact too. So it is fantastic news. There was also a story earlier this week about people who were scheduled for a vaccine in that age bracket who are already booking their holidays, looking ahead to when they'll be able to travel freely, which is also good news. The only thing that concerns me slightly is also on the Telegraph, a line from the Prime Minister today saying that just because the older and more vulnerable members of the population have been vaccinated, that is not a case for reducing restrictions, and that actually you might need everyone to be vaccinated, which I think is, one, really damaging in terms of morale, and two, has really shifted the goalpost so much about what we are trying to do with the vaccine rollout. If the aim is to protect the most vulnerable, protect key workers and essential workers, make sure that it isn't able to spread in care homes and hospital settings and schools, that's a very different prospect to actually it's not safe to relax anything until everyone has had the vaccine. If we're waiting for everyone to have the vaccine, at the current rate, we could be waiting another 8 months. So I really think that we need to start having a debate now about the government's vaccine numbers goal and at what point in that vaccine programme they can start, not relax them completely, but can at least start to relax restrictions, because there are people out there who basically haven't had a hug from anyone in almost a year.
Mick, what do you think? I mean, the government has said that more under 65s are being badly affected by COVID now than they were before, and that's probably one of the factors that mean that they've made that decision to shift the goalposts, if you like, as Rachel put it.
Yeah, well, I think they have to be cautious. I think, as Chris Whitty, Patrick Vallance said in the press conference today, once they see how the vaccination programme works, if we start seeing the numbers of deaths coming down, the numbers of hospitalizations as well coming down, and then I think they'll be more confident to start having that debate. At the moment, they were talking about pushing things back into. There was a debate over when actually spring was. Was there going to be spring after Easter or not at one point in the press conference today? So they're not sure themselves. It can be a bit dispiriting to hear them pushing things a bit further down the road, but they don't want us to be overconfident. But I think there is, underlying, there is a confidence, and I think this is why they have brought in the travel corridor ban, because they do see the vaccinations working. It's just that they can't quite see yet, or they don't want us to be overly confident. They want people this weekend, for instance, to listen to all the rules and keep applying by the rules. So I think they're just being incredibly cautious, but there is hope, I think, on the horizon from the way they are talking.
Let's move on to the FT weekend. The front page, two stories I want to talk about. The global death toll topping 2 million. It's obviously a grim milestone to reach, isn't it, Rachel?
It's a very sobering figure, certainly. And I think what that really reminds us when we're talking about Britain's vaccine rollout, which we are, as we've said, relatively succeeding at the moment, which is great news, is that COVID-19 is a global challenge and that individual country responses only take us so far. There will come a point when Britain's population has been vaccinated sufficiently to reduce restrictions, but we can't give up then. We can't say, OK, this isn't a challenge for us anymore, not just out of our moral duty to other countries, particularly developing countries, although that is obviously part of it, but because one thing we've seen from the past year is if the virus is able to spread anywhere, mutations are possible and they can bring those mutations back into the country. So basically, we won't be safe until every country is safe. And I think that figure is just a reminder that the global community really has to stay focused and work together on this long after individual countries have sorted, you might say, their COVID challenge.
It is a truly horrendous figure.